Hello, and welcome back to the Egyptophile podcast. In this week's episode, we will be discussing a dynasty that would help birth one of the most infamous queens of Egypt, the Ptolemaic Dynasty. The Ptolemaic Dynasty would begin in 323 BCE when Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's generals, was appointed satrap of Egypt upon Alexander's death. Ptolemy would be self declared pharaoh in 305 BCE and become the first Ptolemaic pharaoh. There would be a total of 15 Ptolemies in the Ptolemaic dynasty, and around 20 Ptolemaic pharaohs would reign Egypt. This dynasty would be filled with not only the usual incest that occurred in Egypt, but murder, with many of these murders being due to the heirs or siblings wanting the throne of Egypt. During Ptolemy I's reign, he would establish a new economy in Egypt, which was made up of two ancient economic systems linked by the bureaucratic hierarchy and was increased by market activity, which was stimulated by minting coins and forming a state controlled fiscal policy, with the main sources of income being grain and money circulating from trade. Ptolemy I transformed Egypt into a closed monetary zone and necessitated foreign currency exchange at all of Egypt's entry points. He would also reduce the silver and gold drachmas to 80% of their original weight by 305 BCE to cope with the limited silver supply. Ptolemy II was responsible for the transformation of the cult of Alexander the Great, which was established by his father, Ptolemy I. He would also deify both of his parents and would also promote himself and his sister wife, Arsinoe II, to the defined status of Theoi Adelphoi, also known as sibling gods. Ptolemy III would build upon the efforts of his predecessors to conform to what a traditional pharaoh was. He would be responsible for examples of decrees published as trilingual encryptions. These languages would be in Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and Demotic. He would also make a decree that would not only establish a partnership between him and the Egyptian priestly elite, but would also add a leap day to the Egyptian calendar of 365 days. Ptolemy IV would follow his predecessors and deify himself upon his ascension as the Theos Philopator, Father Loving God. The priests during Ptolemy V's reign would pass the Memphis Decree, which is inscribed on stela, with the two surviving stela being the Nebrea stela and the infamous Rosetta Stone. This decree praises Ptolemy V's benefaction for the Egyptian people, recounts his victory over the rebels at Lycopolis, and even remits a number of taxes on the temples of Egypt. The reign of Ptolemy VI would be one of the first cases of a Ptolemaic pharaoh being outcasted and running to Rome for help. Ptolemy VI co ruled with his sister Cleopatra II and his brother Ptolemy VIII. Ptolemy VII is believed to either be the son of Ptolemy VI or Ptolemy VIII and was posthumously named king. After the Sixth Syrian War, the Ptolemaic monarch's prestige was diminished, which caused a rift between Ptolemy VI and Ptolemy VIII permanently. In 165 BCE, Dionysius Patricide, who was a prominent courtier who appears to have been native Egyptian, attempted to exploit this conflict between the two brothers to take control of the government. He went to the stadium in Alexandria and told the people of Alexandria that Ptolemy VI was planning to assassinate Ptolemy VIII. Ptolemy VI managed to convince his younger brother that the charges were untrue, and both brothers appeared together to defuse the crisis. However, a year later, a now 20-year-old Ptolemy VIII would somehow expel his brother and sister from power. Ptolemy VI would flee to Rome and seek help, but Rome would give him nothing except a poor room in an attic, which was offered by and shared with a painter of personal acquaintance. From there, Ptolemy VI would move on to Cyprus, which was still under his control. When the summer of 163 BCE came, the Alexandrian people rioted against Ptolemy VIII and expelled him. Ptolemy VI was recalled and would come to an agreement with his younger brother, which resulted in Ptolemy VIII getting control of Cyrenaica. However, Ptolemy VIII was not satisfied with this and went to Rome in either late 163 BCE or early 162 BCE to request their assistance. The Roman Senate agreed that this division was unfair and declared that Ptolemy VIII would receive Cyprus too. Titus Manlius Torquatus and Gnaeus Cornelius Merula were sent as envoys to force Ptolemy VI to concede to this. But Ptolemy VI procrastinated and obfuscated. When the Roman envoys returned back, they convinced the Senate to abandon their alliance with Ptolemy VI and grant Ptolemy VIII permission to use force to gain control of Cyprus. However, the Senate offered Ptolemy VIII no actual support in this endeavor, and Cyprus remained under Ptolemy VI's control. Ptolemy VI would survive an assassination attempt in 154 BCE, which he blamed on his brother. After this blame, Ptolemy VIII would once again appeal to Rome and its Senate for assistance against his older brother. The Senate agreed, and another embassy led by Gnaeus Cornelius Merula and Lucius Minucius Thermus, equipped with troops, was sent to enforce the transfer of Cyprus to Ptolemy VIII's control. In response, Ptolemy VI besieged his younger brother at Lepethius and captured him with the Cretan Lee's help. Ptolemy VI would persuade Ptolemy VIII to withdraw from Cyprus in exchange for continued possession of Cyrenaica, an annual payment of grain, and a marriage to one of Ptolemy VI's infant daughters once she came of age. Ptolemy VIII would return to Alexandria and the throne in 145 BCE after Ptolemy VI's death. Upon Ptolemy VIII's return to Alexandria, he launched a purge of those who opposed him and supported his older brother. The Latin writer Justin reports that Ptolemy VIII let his troops rampage through Alexandria, murdering indiscriminately until he was left alone with his soldiers in so large a city and found himself a king, not of men, but of empty houses. Latin writer Valerius Maximus states that when the young men of Alexandria took refuge in the Gymnasium, Ptolemy VIII set it on fire. Upon Ptolemy VIII's ascension to the throne, the Ptolemaic presence in the Aegean Sea ended. He had withdrawn his troops and limited his power to Egypt, Cyprus, and Cyrene. Between 142 and 139 BCE, Ptolemy VIII would marry his niece, Cleopatra III, without divorcing his sister wife, Cleopatra II. In response to this, Cleopatra II, with the support of Galasteus, initiated a revolt. Galasteus would father an army of Ptolemaic exiles in Greece and announced that he had Ptolemy VI's younger son in his care, crowning this boy as king. Galasteus would attack Ptolemy VIII and intended to put the young boy on the throne. By 139 BCE, however, Galasteus would be defeated, and Ptolemy VIII would issue a decree which affirmed the rights and privileges of the Egyptian priesthood. In this decree, he represented himself, Cleopatra II, and Cleopatra III as harmoniously ruling together. The conflict between Cleopatra II and Ptolemy VIII would finally erupt into open warfare in late 132 BCE, with Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra III on one side and Cleopatra II on the opposing side. Ptolemy would retain control of Alexandria at first, but the people of Alexandria would riot in late 131 BCE in favor of Cleopatra II and set fire to the royal palace. Ptolemy, Cleopatra III, and their children would escape to Cyprus, while Cleopatra II would crown herself as sole queen, the first time that a Ptolemaic woman had done so. Cleopatra II would assume the title of Thea Philometor Theotera, mother-loving savior goddess, which served as a link to her deceased husband Ptolemy VI and to the dynasty's founder, Ptolemy I. While Alexandria did side with Cleopatra II, she was mostly supported by the Greek and Jewish people of her country. while Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra III were more popular with the native Egyptian population. Most of Egypt also continued to acknowledge Ptolemy VIII as their king. Ptolemy VIII and Cleopatra III would return to Egypt in early 130 BCE, and by spring would be in charge of Memphis. They would promote a man named Faust to the command of Upper Egypt due to his success against defeating Patricide, who was a rebel who seized control of Thebes in either August or September of 131 BC. Ptolemy VIII would go on to eliminate two of his eldest sons by Cleopatra II. One was summoned from Cyrene and killed due to the suspicion that the Alexandrians would make him king. The other, 12-year-old Ptolemy Menthetes, was killed and dismembered, with the dismembered pieces being sent to Cleopatra II on her birthday. Both Cleopatra II and Ptolemy VIII would appeal to Rome, but the Senate would not intervene in the conflict. Cleopatra II would flee with her treasury to the court of Demetrius II in 127 BCE. In her absence, Ptolemy VIII was able to reconquer Alexandria, which once again was accompanied with a bloody purge of Cleopatra II's supporters. When this purge was done, Ptolemy began negotiations to reconcile with Cleopatra II and the Seleucid court. This process was long and was finally achieved in 118 BCE. Ptolemy VIII would die on June 28, 116 BC, and he would be succeeded by his eldest surviving son, Ptolemy IX, alongside Cleopatra II and Cleopatra III. Ptolemy IX would also face expulsion. This would be due to a conflict between him and Cleopatra III. The Greek traveler Pausanias claims that this was due to Cleopatra III wounding a number of her own eunuch servants and displaying them to the people of Alexandria to show that Ptolemy IX, her own son, had attempted to assassinate her. This resulted in the Alexandrians rioting and expelling Ptolemy IX from the city. Ptolemy IX would be succeeded by his brother, Ptolemy X. However, in the spring of 88 BCE, Ptolemy X would be expelled, and Ptolemy IX would be recalled to the throne. Ptolemy X would be killed during an invasion of Cyprus. Ptolemy IX would be formally recrowned in November and reign until his death in August of 81. The next Ptolemy to reign and be exiled would be Ptolemy XII. Ptolemy XII was Ptolemy IX's illegitimate son. Ptolemy XII was also known as Letes, which referred to his love of playing the flute during Dionysian festivals. Ptolemy XII would arrive in Alexandria in April 80 BCE and would marry a relative, Cleopatra V. However, Cleopatra V would cease to be mentioned as co-regent in August 69 BC. Ptolemy's relationship with Rome was major. I am now joined by my 6th grade history teacher, Mr. K, to discuss what this relationship looked like and how our relationship with Rome would be achieved, as well as how big a role Rome played in Ptolemy XII's reign. This is Mr. K. He was my 6th grade history teacher who I have a fond memory of talking about all things Rome and Egypt with. I specifically remember he made it my mission when we did a unit on the Egyptian deities that I had to find a deity that I didn't know about. And he made sure that I didn't know about them because he asked. And I had to look so hard to find one, and it took me, I think it was about a week to fully find one. And he's like, okay. So it worked out very well.
Refresh my memory. Who did you pick?
I think it was Nephthys.
Oh, okay.
Nephthys. So it was, and I think actually that paperwork is downstairs because my husband found it the other day, and I was like, holy,
really?
This is old. So, and the favorite unit that we did was, of course, going into Rome and Egypt, and the Roman occupation of Egypt. And First question is, we do know that Rome's influence on Egypt started around 63 BCE when Ptolemy the 12th sought to form a
Correct.
diplomatic relationship with the Roman statesman Pompey. When it came
Right.
to establishing diplomatic relations with Rome, how would that normally be required?
Well, first off, it'd have to be, like you said, a formal thing. It would include ambassadors, envoys. That would have to be of a higher stature, probably nobility on the Egyptian part. They would visit Rome. They would have to bring gifts. They'd have to bring tributes. They'd have to show that they were willing to give things to Rome. Rome was very self-centered in their political motives. So if they did not bring something to them, it was a done deal. They weren't going to have anything with it. They would have to agree to any political positions that Rome would press, whether that would help Egypt or not. That was beside the point. They would have to show that they were willing to accept Rome's policies. And they would have to accept like any decrees or any laws that Rome would pass. They would have to show willingness to accept those laws. Otherwise, the deal was done.
Definitely, especially in that early kind of starts of that empire under Caesar's reign. I do know there's quite a few instances of that quote unquote cockiness that Caesar had of, hey, if you're not giving me this isn't going to happen.
That's Caesar.
And it's definitely love-hate relationship I have with that Julius Caesar. It is believed that when Ptolemy the 12th exiled himself to Rome, he brought a young Cleopatra the 7th with him. And we know that he even paid for Rome to help him be returned to the throne. What arrangement was made in order to assure Ptolemy got his throne back, and how would that arrangement kind of play out?
Well, again, and you said it, he did have to bring quite a bit of money. If you want to call it a bribe, then call it a bribe. It was a very substantial extent. If I remember right, it was in the millions of denarii. So it was a large amount for back then. He had to promise Rome, whether it be Caesar, whether it be Pompey or the Senate itself, loyalty, which I think would kind of set him off being a Ptolemy, a pharaoh, and he's giving his loyalty to another country. But again, that was one of the stipulations that Rome would have had.
Yeah, I know that upon my own kind of research, kind of delving into it, because I, of course, will be covering kind of more about Ptolemy the 12th and Cleopatra, since, of course, they kind of work hand in hand. I do know that, of course, the Egyptians were not happy at all about what Ptolemy was doing with Rome at that time.
Oh, absolutely not.
So,
absolutely not. In fact, the Roman army under Aulus, and I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Gabinius, he was a Roman general, actually had to intervene, and it was actually this general that put Ptolemy the 12th back on the throne.
Which, again, yeah, that insane how that one great empire had to go to another empire in order to kind of get its ducks back in a row. When Ptolemy the 12th died in 51 BCE, he left behind a massive debt to Rome. How would Rome go about getting this loan repaid?
Just like a loan shark. They would bring in and they would send ultimatums. And if need be, they'd bring in the strong arm. That happened to be, at first it was Pompey, but then of course that collapsed when Caesar and Pompey had their civil war. So then once that was over with, it was Caesar was the strong arm.
And I know in a few cases, even Caesar was coming in to ensure that, of course, the granary was full to go through and get grain sent to Roman troops and stuff, because at that point in time, Egypt's grain as well as their other farm necessities were also used to help feed and function the Roman military. So
Yes. Yeah. In fact, the saying was that Egypt fed the Roman army.
when Ptolemy the 12th regained his throne in 55 BCE, he would execute his daughter Bernice the Fourth. Ptolemy's power would be maintained with the assistance of around 2,000 Roman soldiers and mercenaries, which were known as the Gibeoni. The arrangement between Rome and Ptolemy allowed Rome to exert power over him until he fell ill in 51 BCE. His daughter, the infamous Cleopatra VII, would be named regent on May 31st, 52 BCE. Ptolemy the 12th would die around March 22nd, 51 BCE. In his will, he stipulated that Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII co-rule together. To safeguard this, he made the Roman people executors of his will. However, the Senate was busy with its own affairs, and so his ally, Pompey, approved this will. But how would the Ptolemaic dynasty end? What legacy did they leave behind? Well, for the answer to this, make sure you tune in to the season finale of the Egyptopile podcast next Sunday. Until then, remember to follow the Podcast Blue Sky and Facebook pages to ask questions about the podcast, get podcast updates, or just to talk about the podcast. Also, remember that you are loved, and like the Ptolemies, you deserve to fight for what you want, even if it may be a little bit counterproductive. May the goddess Isis protect you.